Good afternoon, everybody. A warm welcome to today's Live at the Waterhole show. My name is Ben Coley. I'm back with you after a little bit of an absence, but very much looking forward to sharing the next 2 hours of beautiful views from all of our cameras, thanks to Africam, across southern and some of Eastern Africa as well. If you are joining us for the very first time, we will be visiting various cameras as people watch them in Johannesburg, and they will navigate us to where there is some action. And hopefully, I can give you some interesting commentary as to what we're seeing, such as why these wildebeest are running like hooligans around the dam. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe a little bit of exercise this morning. But this is live and interactive, so we never know what we're going to see, and we rely on your input to make it entertaining. So please do send in your questions and comments. It's always lovely to hear from you, where you're from, what you're thinking about, what your thoughts on what we're seeing are. So interesting to see those wildebeest blowing a little bit of energy off this morning. But I suppose if you're going to do it, why not do it around the watering hole? Shouldn't be a great deal of arguments happening between males this time of year. Most of the females, if not all of the females, will be pregnant by now. Of course, they are gearing up for dropping their calves in conjunction with the first rains, which would normally occur around about November, December, the first proper rains. We have had a little bit of a drizzle here in the Lowvelds yesterday evening, or the night before, and yesterday morning we did have a little bit of rain and some strong winds. The seasons are definitely changing, and long may that continue. It even looks as if there's a little bit of a green flush around the dam here as well, which is great. Because we've had some wonderful sightings over the last couple of days. If you've been watching the live safaris, we've seen Basamwari in Sandringham, we've seen the cheetahs up in Mabula, the lions in the Mara, a new lion cubs in the Jackies area, as well as a beautiful sighting of Palumba and Shapondo feeding on a kill up in a tree. I can't promise you visuals like that, but you just never know what you're going to get. It's part of the fun here. But here at Jamala, up in Madikwe, sorry, I didn't say where we were. You can still see this water is attracting plenty of animals. But so it's a very sprightly wildebeest this morning. Maybe have a little bit of energy in light of this little flush of grass. Always nice to see some activity. Let's try our hand now at Oldonyo in Kenya. And we have a fairly typical scene here at Oldonyo. 3 elephants monopolizing the waterhole while the zebras take turns daring each other to come down and try and drink amongst these great leviathans. But these elephants look pretty tied up with what they're doing, not too fussed by the zebras having a little drink. But you can see as normal, there is a little bit of a queue there, only a small corner of this now very small waterhole available for the zebras with these ellies clustered around it. Leslie, you're saying you can't wait for the green again. Yeah, I always have mixed emotions this time of year. I know I'm going to have to deal with the summer heat and humidity, which I never really enjoy. But along with it, yes, that green flush, all the interesting insects coming out to play, and of course, all the baby animals that we associate with summer, which is always a delight. That really makes us not worry too much about the heat. Always looking forward to the massive influx of baby impalas, baby wildebeest. We'll have a peak of baby zebra foals as well, and then my personal favourite, the little chipolatas. The baby warthogs will also be coming over the coming months. There'll be a few that start earlier than the rest. We might expect to see the first ones around October, but they will peak November, December, possibly into January. Hello to Mr. Ellie Mental as well, joining us from a beautiful Two People's Bay in Western Australia. Evening for you there, I would think, Mr. Elemental. So hopefully these beautiful blue skies and cumulus clouds up here at Oldonia in Kenya will help you remember the light of day over there. Jasmine, you're asking, how do elephants use their trunks for social interactions? Well, of course, elephants use a variety of different means of communication. We know they use infrasonic rumblings, they secrete hormones in their urine, their dung from their temporal glands, but they are very tactile animals. You'll often see, particularly mothers and offspring, touching each other with their trunks. It's, I suppose, almost like shaking hands for people or holding hands. It's quite an intimate moment. Often the youngsters will put their trunks up towards the mouths of their mothers as well. Whether this is sort of eliciting for food, I'm not 100% sure, but definitely a form of tactile communication. You often see the young bulls as well. They will sort of reach out and investigate one another with their trunks, as well as wrapping trunks around each other and having a good push and a shove as they're trying to establish their dominance hierarchies. But when you've got an appendage like that, which can be used for social communication, we see it very regularly. You could also argue that they're using their trunk during olfactory communication as well. Massive surface area for receptor cells for those scents. The nasal epithelium is particularly large and can smell tiny little amounts of chemicals in the air or being secreted by an individual with that super sensitive nose. So sensitive, in fact, that it was used in Mozambique, or they were used in Mozambique after the Civil War to try and find unexploded mines and things. And there have even been cases of elephants being used to solve crimes, a little bit like sniffer dogs. Problem is, they eat a little bit too much, and they're rather difficult to transport around. So I think the dogs have got the monopoly on crime fighting at the moment, although not bad to have an elephant in your corner. Teboho Matsamela from Palabora, you're asking if the waterhole here at Oldonia is natural. No, this is a pumped waterhole. There is a pipe that feeds water like a trickle flow just to keep the water levels up, although I have to say it is rather low at the moment. I have seen it probably nearly double this size before. Whether that's an issue, a man-made issue with the mechanisms, or just that there's been an influx of animals and the trickle flow is not keeping up, I'm not sure. But pretty much where that zebra is standing side onto us, just right of centre, I've seen the water out to about there in the past.
The Wild with Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
The bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold, a mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Going to potentially follow through with its charge. Is going to have its trunk tucked out of the way, its ears pinned back against the sides of its head to protect those extremities. Okay, lovely scenes up here at Oldonyo, but let's head down to Madikwe. Oh wow, look at these two having a fight. Let's stay here a little bit longer before we do that. We're going to get completely covered in dust. Possibly two males scrapping. Of course, in a situation like this, we'll have multiple little harems of zebras. So a stallion with a group of mares, 3, 4, 5 of those such groups coming together to share the availability of this resource, and that inevitably leads to some infighting and some grumbling. Remember, you're not just gifted mares. If you're a stallion, you have to fight other males and take one of those already spoken for females to be your own. So quite normal to see zebras engaging in some fisticuffs like that, but always lovely to see when they kick up all of that dust as well. That was a little bit of excitement. Let's do what we were going to do a minute ago and head back down, or back to Madikwe, but this time to Tau. Oh, and a bit of a mini migration going on at Tau. Plenty of wildebeest, plenty of zebra. Also, these wildebeest have some energy. I don't know what's going on in Madikwe today. Somebody's left the energy drinks out. I'd say I'm not sure if they've had any rain at Madikwe recently, but looking at the grass, you can see it looks like someone's just put a little tiny film of spray paint. So I think they've probably had some, even if it's just a bit of dew or something. But you can see the bush is responding. And wildebeest being very picky with what they eat, they much prefer very short grass. So perhaps they are just very happy. They realise the seasons are turning, and the constant struggle to find food worth eating may be over for the next few months at least. So why would you not be happy? I think all the restaurants have just reopened and have got amazing special offers on for the wildebeest. Hello, Lenny. You're saying welcome back. Thank you, Lenny. Yes, it's been a while since I've done any live at the waterholes. I've been very busy of late. I have done a little bit for Wild Earth. So some of you may have seen me at Sandringham a couple of weekends ago, and I had the honour of doing a fireside chat with the renowned international author Tony Park, which was an absolute pleasure to spend some time with Tony and his great experiences here in Africa, as well as the way in which he goes about writing books and things. As somebody who likes to put pen to paper occasionally, it was very interesting to speak to an official author. Not that I've ever got as far as a book or anything, but I enjoy writing articles and things for the local paper here in Hoedspruit. So that was really interesting to hear more about his thought process and his time here in Africa and what's inspired his lovely merge of conservation and history from southern Africa. Even the Egyptian geese are running around this morning. I'm going to call it the joys of spring. Nathan, you say you've heard of elephants dropping objects to mark locations. Is this true? Honestly, Nathan, I have never heard of elephants sort of doing that, if you mean to kind of remind themselves, oh, there's a nice tree here, I'll drop something next to it so I can find it in the future. Unaware of that being an official thing, but I would say that elephants do have an incredibly good memory, as we know, and good spatial awareness. So I'm not going to say it's not possible, but I'm not aware of any specific research or findings based on that kind of behavior. I'm just trying to think why they would do that, because things like food, they're more likely to find through smell than they are. And I somehow can't imagine dropping we often, if we find a sighting off the road and we want to direct people in the best access to that sighting in a vehicle, we'll drop like a little magic quarry branch on the road. But if an elephant wants to remember where the position of a certain tree is, I can't see how dropping a branch on the floor or making a little pile of stones would be particularly helpful. But never say never, certainly. They are very, very resourceful animals, far more intelligent than sometimes we give them credit for. So who knows, Nathan? Who knows? Jackie, you asking, do different species purposefully avoid each other at waterholes and stagger their visits? I wouldn't say so specifically, Jackie, but if the waterhole is small, such as there at Oldonia, and there's 7, 8, 9, 10 big elephant bulls monopolizing that area, then the other animals will have to wait. But it's not unusual to see predators coming down and drinking, and the prey animals still milling around. They'll obviously keep a close eye on them. But there's kind of an unspoken truce at waterholes. It's, especially during the daytime. I think the animals are a little bit more trusting of the predators. If the predators are just casually strolling down for a drink, from a body language perspective, that's showing the potential prey items that they're not in hunt mode, they're not trying to stay hidden. And most animals know as long as they've got the jump on these things, they can see where they're coming from. It's unlikely that a lion or something is going to launch an attack because it's lost the element of surprise. Its chances of success will be much, much lower. It would have to expend an awful lot of energy in the heat. So rather not do it. Not to say it never happens. You do get some lions that lie in wait, like an ambush next to the waterhole. But generally speaking, with the exception of the occasional grumpy elephant, waterholes are a relatively placid and docile place, apart from the occasional bit of infighting like we saw with the zebras. Hello to Gillian as well. Thank you for being grateful for my return. It's always a treat to share some information and experiences with everybody watching during these live at the Waterhole shows. This is my first time doing it slightly earlier, the 11 o'clock until 1 o'clock here in South Africa. So it'll be interesting to see whether we see more or less animals as we're slightly out of the oppressive heat of midday in the early afternoon. Maybe we'll get a bit more activity. It's certainly looking that way at the moment. Robert, you're saying, why do different animals end up drinking side by side sometimes? I don't know, Robert. Possibly the water in one position is cleaner or less muddy or murky or has less hippo dung in it less algae or bacteria perhaps in that particular area, which attracts most of the animals there. They'd much rather have cleaner water than dirty, fetid water. But as I said, there's kind of an unspoken truce at waterholes. I think everybody realizes they have to drink. Nature's elixir is there for everybody, and there is no sort of corporate or politics that gets in the way of it, and the animals share their resources. Oh, how we could benefit from that.
Let's go and take a look. See you out there.
Dihamba ehlathini elikhulu, diphula-phula amazwi omoya, indlovu zilula ngengoma, livakala phezulu.
There's some ellies that we're approaching now.
Light on her as well is absolutely gorgeous.
So we are going to enjoy the rest of this sunset.
Wow, 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 this is absolutely crazy.
And thank you for joining us. For myself and Cam, we will see you next time.
Every month, something wild lands in your inbox. From rare sightings and behind-the-scenes secrets to expert stories, seasonal changes, and exclusive travel opportunities, the Wild Earth Journal is your free monthly mailer, packed with the magic of the wild straight from the field. It's fun, it's free, it's full of surprises. Sign up now on the Wild Earth website.
Springboks can handle the heat in a variety of ways. Like most things, they'll rest during or not expend too much energy during the oppressive heat. They've got quite thin fur to deal with those dry, arid, hot conditions. You can see the very white stomachs that they've got. Remember that the vast majority of heat that you feel during the day is not necessarily coming directly from the sun, from the giant nuclear reactor in the sky. It's actually the heat bouncing off the ground. So the ground gets warmed by those infrared rays and then reflects back up from the ground towards you. That's why the greenhouse effect is such a problem. Those greenhouse gases trap that released heat and don't let it escape. So many animals that occupy these fairly dry, arid areas, and particularly rocky areas, have white stomachs with thinner fur to help reflect some of that heat. White reflects heat, black absorbs heat. But their main method of defense is actually just above the tail. You can see there's a little bit of white there. Now, that is a sort of especially adapted, almost like flap of skin that under very warm conditions, it can open that skin up and expose that large white triangle on its rump. They'll often position themselves with their rump facing towards the sun, and that white, just the same way we're just discussing with the belly, acts like a giant mirror and reflects away some of that sun's heat. So it's kind of like a pouch that is tucked away across the top of the rump. You can see where that darker fur is. And their scientific name reflects that, Dorcus marsupialis, Dorcus meaning sort of antelope-like, and marsupialis referring to that pouch-like, I don't want to call it an organ, but adaptation that they have on their rump to deal with heat. They'll also do the countercurrent heat exchange very efficiently as well. You can see it's sort of panting a little bit. So getting that cooler air into that nasal cavity, that will cool the blood and send it around the rest of the body. That's very normal in a lot of antelopes. It's what dogs are doing when they are panting, or birds when you see them flapping their tongue and their throat around. They're very, very well adapted to life in arid environments. And that white belly is very famous. It was noted by the Bushmen as well. One of their stories about what is the Milky Way, that line, white line that runs across the sky. If you can get to a nice dark area, particularly in the winter months, the Milky Way was described by the Bushmen as the underbellies of a great herd of celestial springbok, which were migrating across the sky. Very important to the Bushmen, of course, as a food source and from hunting. You see a lot of that in cultural star lore, things named after resources that are readily available at that time of year. But while our Springbok's headed off, you saw a nice little flash of that white triangle when he turned, but let's go for some ocean views down at Stony Point. And the ever grumpy looking Dusty. See a little bit of sea breeze just rippling through that nice long hair, so different from the Springbok, which has very short, fine hair to deal with the heat. Dussies, well known for being very poor at thermoregulating. They struggle to keep warm. That's why they huddle together in cracks and things in rocks. So a nice thick pelt that they have there. And that also acts like a bit of a shock absorber, just in case they do take a tumble on those little rocky outcrops that they prefer to hang around on. Attracted his attention. Other Dussies, maybe a rogue penguin waddling about. Not a bad view from your doorstep, looking out and listening to the crashing ocean waves. Kenneth, you want to know what sound a Dussie makes? Kenneth, they do make a sound, but I am not willing to try and make the sound for you. I'm struggling to actually sort of think how I would verbalize it, but they are capable of making sound, so I should just leave it at that. Dawn, you're saying they represent wisdom in weakness. That's very profound. But I suppose, yes, they've learnt to live with some of those problems that they have, and they do very well. Wherever you find little rocky outcrops, there's a very good chance of finding Dussies and little hyraxes, and they are a very cute thing. They always look a little bit grumpy, but they're very, very cute. They're like oversized guinea pigs. Where was I? I was up in the outpost in the Pafuri region of Kruger last month, and there are lots of Dussies up there, and they're so relaxed with people. You kind of walk past them on the wooden decking there, and they kind of look at you in that bemused, rather grumpy look. Ah, there's another one popping out. Looks a bit bedraggled, bit of bedhead going on. See those nice little stumpy toes every now and again, especially adapted for wandering around on the rocks. Sort of sweat glands on the underside, which just help to give those toes a little bit more grip, as well as a kind of a suction cupped shape palm, I suppose you would call it, which just helps to trap a little bit of air there, like pushing down on a one of those sort of rubber things that bounces back up. It just creates a little bit of vacuum and just helps to anchor their feet to the rocks better. It was nice to check in with our Dassies here at Stony Point. But let's head across to the Eastern Cape to Mantis Founders Lodge now. Ah, beautiful. We've got a rhino, looks like with a calf suckling, perhaps. Hard to see in the shadows of that acacia, but certainly looks like a suckling youngster there. That's very special. So lucky to see the rhino here at Mantis Founders Lodge. Maybe not suckling, but maybe has recently suckled. Now just having a snooze. Carla, you're asking, do we get fossils on our coastline? We do, Carla, but I wouldn't really be in a position to tell you what specifically. Just because I was reading up about it not that long ago, there was the skull of what we call a short-necked giraffe that I know was found down in the Western Cape, which is from millions of years ago. That was just quite interesting because I was reading about short-necked giraffes and also four-tusked elephants, apparently, which also used to wander around the globe. Imagine an elephant with four tusks. It'd be a strange thing to see, but I have no doubt there are plenty of others. There are dinosaur fossils. Dinosaur footprints have been found fossilized in the Drakensberg Mountains. So I have no doubt there is a whole host of fossils that can and are found, but I couldn't give you specifics. Pauline, you're saying, would I say that the bigger the animal, the longer it suckles? Yes and no, Pauline. Generally speaking, and it is a general rule of thumb, but it's right more often than not, the weaning period, so the length of time that an animal will suckle, will be directly proportionate to the gestation period. That's a sort of a standard rule of thumb. There are, of course, exceptions. For example, hyenas suckle for a lot longer. Elephants can also suckle for a lot longer. So one does have to look at the sort of specific weaning periods for each animal, but the ones that don't match the gestation period are going to be the exceptions to the rule. So it's not so much to do with size as it is to do with the length of gestation period, it seems. Interesting question from Ivan, which I have not answered immediately. Sorry, Ivan, but I wanted to give it some thought, and I haven't got any closer to an answer for you. You asked, are there any studies or occasions of bush animals responding to music? What a lovely idea. I've got these visions of a herd of impala enjoying a symphony from Mozart or something. Um, there probably is, Ivan. I don't see why not, but music to an animal may not. It doesn't mean anything. It might be interesting. It might prick their ears up because it's an unusual sound. But it would be interesting to know whether an animal's behavior could be quelled a little bit by the type of music. If you play it some heavy metal versus some trance versus some classical, as to whether or not it does have um, an impact on the animal's mood or behavior. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, but I'm unaware of any studies that actually have tested this. I mean, we do know that animals are susceptible to sound, and I think it's possibly a little bit of anthropomorphizing rather than anything else. But I know I'm not alone in the guiding fraternity that if we encounter an aggressive animal, you can either sort of fight fire with fire and be sound aggressive back to the animal, and it will be able to pick up the intonation and the stresses in your voice. But there again, we also do like to speak softly and calmly, almost as if you're speaking to a baby. And certainly, I am of the opinion that that helps to quell the situation. It's sort of a more about, I think, the energy that you're giving off. But certainly, animals will respond to the tone in which you use as well. So I don't know about anything specific to music, but it's something I would be interested to go and check out. Thank you, Ivan. Good question. Looks like these two are just enjoying the shade more than anything else. Be nice if Mum comes down and has a drink.
I get to wake up every morning and go out there and look for cats. I get to create my everyday safari for myself. I grew up in the sort of central eastern suburbs of Johannesburg, fully qualified trails guide and a fully qualified nature conservationist. I love the wild places. I love being in the wilderness. It's probably one of the best jobs I've ever had and probably ever could have.
This is unbelievable.
Oh, she's gonna catch it.
Come on, Tommy. Watch this, we're about to see a kill.
You can see how close he is from where I am.
for their caterpillars, tended to avoid the plants that were giving off stress sounds and rather went for the ones that were producing a noise that said all is hunky-dory and we're in good condition. Taxi lady from the Outer Hebrides, you say seals respond to singing. Again, I can believe that. Marine mammals do tend to sing. We know about whale songs and communication through water. Oh, look, little Egyptian geese chicks. Only 3. All right, 4. So, taxi lady, yeah, I can believe that as well with marine mammals. It's quite a small clutch for a group of Egyptian geese. They can sometimes have 10 youngsters in tow. Whether they've lost a few or whether it was just a small clutch, I'm not sure. Oh. Well, that's big bull coming down for a drink. Be rude not to watch him. Always lovely to see the reflection. A really good look at that massive wedge-shaped head that rhinos have got and their small little eyes. Female showing a little bit of interest in the back as well. Not sure if that was a yawn or if she was analysing something. I think possibly more of a yawn. Oh no, he's back again. Seeing a little bird in the shadows there as well, maybe just keeping out of the sunlight, using a rhino parasol. Yeah, just keeping out of dodge. Engaging reverse gear. Let's see if he's going to go over and say hello to the female over there. Gillian, a female rhino, for white rhino and black rhino, the gestation periods are a little bit different. On average, it'll be 16 to 18 months of the gestation period for a white rhino like this, or the square-lipped rhino, whereas the black rhino or hook-lipped rhino, being a little bit smaller, has a slightly shorter gestation period, more like 14 to 15 months. So not a lot in it, perhaps 2 months difference. But again, a lot of it will be influenced slightly by the availability of resources. I always remember having a chat with a guest who bred buffaloes many, many years ago when I was at Sabi Sabi. The official gestation period for wild buffalo is around about 11 months. But apparently in a captive situation where they're being fed good food year-round, not having to worry about seasonal changes and a lack of nice, nutritious food, that can be taken down a lot more to sort of around about 8.5, maybe 9 months. So there will be it is variable based on how much food and energy they have available to them. Spectacular to check in on some rhinos down here at Mantis Founders Lodge. Let's go up to Olifantsson now. And a very sleek looking, sort of streamlined crocodile, half in, half out of the water. Prehistoric looking with those spikes running all down the back, but of course they do have an important role. I saw some very interesting footage of a crocodile in the infrared light recently, and you can see how white those little spines are in comparison to the rest of the body, because they are one of the ways that they thermoregulate. So there are sort of little holes, little pores within those sort of fins, those spines that have blood vessels running through them. So close to the surface of the skin, above that very thick layer that is otherwise protecting the crocodile, and that just helps them when they're lying in the sun like this. The blood close to the surface running over or running through those little protrusions heat up nicely and are able to then circulate around the rest of the body. So they are called osteoderms, is their official term. Richard, you're asking what bird calls I can hear. Yes, well, I was enjoying the common scimitarbill just now when we first arrived. That, if you can hear my whistle coming through, that rather repetitive noise. I'm glad that you asked here and not in the Eastern Cape, because that's not an area I know particularly well. There were some bird calls I was listening to, sounded like either a desert or a cloud cisticular I thought I heard down there, possibly something that sounded like one of the cuckoo shrikes. But it's not an area that I visit very regularly, and anyone who does bird calls will tell you that if you leave an area and you don't hear the calls for a while, they disappear out of your memory quite quickly. You recognize the noise, but struggle to put a name to said noise. So there's the common scimitarbill calling. We've got an oriole just going, sort of descending, almost sort of liquidy note you can hear in the background of the black-headed oriole. I heard a baboon bark just now. Red-billed hornbill in the background. Chin-spot batis doing its 3 blind mice. Back as well. It says, keep it real, keep it real, keep it real. Descending note of the emerald spotted wood dove as well. What I believe to be a yellow fronted canary. Go away bird in the background. It's one of those things when you actually start to listen, you hear more and more and more. It's just like tuning your ears to different frequencies. Guinea fowl in the distance, sounds like a squeaky wheelbarrow. Of course, what sounds like a squeaky wheelbarrow to me may not sound like that to somebody else, but brown crowned chagra there as well. easiest way to learn these bird calls is to come up with some sort of association between the animal and the noise it's making that makes sense in your head. I always find it's best, certainly when I was doing guide training, other people struggle to learn bird calls. I think we used to make them learn over 100 bird calls in the space of a few months. Some of them are pretty obvious, but others you have to really kind of search for some sort of link between the two of them. But I often find if you try and force it yourself and try and say, what is the bird saying? It's very difficult. But if somebody says, oh, it sounds like it's saying bananas and custard, then you go, oh, actually, yes, you're right. It does sound like that. It doesn't work so well if you're trying to force the issue yourself. So working in groups is a good idea. A young bot having a little bit of a sunbathe, but I think we're going to head down to Tembe Elephant Park now in Maputo. Maybe we'll stay a little bit longer with this crocodile. That's also fine. Very dark crocodile this. Don't see much markings. Maybe a little bit towards the end of the tail. Really good chance to look at all those scales. Alright, now I think we are going to try Tembe. Nice to see a herd here at Tembe with some youngsters. Normally I only see bulls here, so nice to see some females and young also.
See you out on the safari.
It could be a very exciting morning.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word. She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh. This is action-packed.
Join our expert guides at dawn for a live, immersive safari as the bush comes to life.
Found ourselves a chameleon, and look how he's changed color.
Every sunrise brings new discoveries.
Pound for pound, a leopard is one of the strongest cats around.
Ask questions, share your thoughts, and connect with nature, live and in real time.
Great excitement, great happiness.
Start your day with adventure.
Can you hear that? The wild is calling.
Des, you're asking if crocodiles ever fully extend their legs. Yes, they do. They are capable of it. Their sort of natural position is it tucked in by their sides. It's a lot of it's to do with regulating temperature as well. If they're really cold, they might stretch out their legs to increase the surface area to collect some of that heat. And if they are going to move quickly on land, be it walking or even running, then they will straighten their legs, lift their bellies off the ground, and officially kind of run or waddle at speed, shall we say. Obviously, not so important in the water. Buoyancy is rather used, neutral buoyancy achieved by lithophasia, eating some rocks perhaps to find that right balance where they don't sink or float. And then using that very muscular tail to propel themselves through the water, perfectly streamlined for that behavior, but quite capable of moving around on land should they choose to do so, particularly if they need to migrate away from a particular water point to another one. I remember we used to have a crocodile on Kurungwe Game Reserve that used to just sort of do a periodic rotation between 3 or 4 waterholes that were in quite a small area, only separated by a couple of 100 meters, but we'd find the same crocodile fairly regularly in all 4 of those different waterholes. So whether moving for better food availability, I'm not sure. Excuse me. Helga, no pitme froes yet, no red-chested cuckoos. I haven't heard them back. I did hear a report of somebody heard a thick-billed cuckoo where I stay recently. The nightjars are certainly calling loud and proud in the evenings. Yellow-billed kites are back, red-breasted swallows are back, the warburgs, eagles are back. A lot of our cuckoos, in fact, the vast majority of our cuckoos are intra-African migrants, meaning they go up further north into Africa during our winter months, so up into the northern regions of Zimbabwe and Botswana, but will still remain south of the Sahara, and then they generally come back once summer has begun. So I imagine we'll be hearing them in the next few weeks. Things are definitely returning to take advantage of the summer. But no red-chested cuckoos just yet. I did, however, see an African cuckoo hawk the other day, which I haven't seen for a very long time. So not a cuckoo, it is a bird of prey, but looks a little bit cuckoo-like. Actually, also looks a bit pigeon-like, if I'm honest. But very, very nice to see one of those as well. Ivan, you're saying clouds affect my stargazing, but does it alter animal behavior? It does affect my stargazing, yes, which is why another reason I don't like summer. But I've learned to deal with it, and we have ways around it. No stars, no problems. There's still plenty of interesting things to discuss. And thanks to apps and visual resources, you can still put on a very entertaining evening. Animal-wise, in my experience, I would just say that when it's cloudy, the animals are less active. It's like they are saving energy it's almost counterintuitive. You'd expect on a nice, cool, cloudy morning that the animals would be out in force, frolicking around, safe in the knowledge that they're not going to get cooked anytime soon. But in my experience, it's normally the opposite. Cloudy, cool days are usually quite slow. The animals prefer to stay in the thicker stuff. You often find them lying down and ruminating, just not wanting to expend any energy. And again, I can't give you any particular reason why, but that seems to be the norm. I always say it's a bit like just waking up in the morning and you open the curtains and it's cold and drab and miserable outside, and you think, oh, well, I'll just go back to bed for a little bit longer. There's no immediate rush to get everything done in the early hours or the late afternoon hours when the temperature is a little bit more tolerable. But I think it's just not such an importance to get everything done quickly. Lovely to see these in Yalas as well. So, young one, did you get left behind? Right, we are going to head up for some different antelopes up in the Serengeti. This is a new camera for me. I have not yet visited the Serengeti Explorer waterhole, so very excited to see what we're going to find. Plenty of acacias and a lovely group of young waterbuck. Quite normal to see youngsters form these sort of little creches in waterbuck, particularly the males. All with a little bit of growing to do, certainly. One on the right just beginning to develop a little bit of a curve in those horns. It's quite normal for waterbuck to do this. Now, these I'm imagining, now I'm not an East African expert, but I'm assuming these are the Defassa waterbuck, based on the fact that I see no white ring around their rumps. Also, very dark legs, I've noticed as well. But facially, they look the same. They're all sharing that beautiful heart-shaped nose. They've still got that shaggy fur. Now, I do have a theory as to why these waterbuck don't have the white circle, but ours do. And my theory is as follows, that a circle is an unusual shape out in the bush. Most things grow vertically. Think of grass, think of tree limbs. Most things are growing up towards the sun. And if indeed those markings on the back of the animal are a following mechanism to allow animals to keep together as they move through the vegetation, out in East Africa, it's generally dominated with open plains where seeing each other through sort of specific markings like that is not so important. Down here in southern Africa, it's a lot more heavily vegetated. So having just a little white patch, like you can see these ones have got, might be more difficult to see through all of the crazy vegetation we have here, whereas a white circle will stand out because everything else is growing vertically and the circle is, well, circular. So that's my theory, that in a heavily vegetated area, a white circle stands out against the vertical growth form of most trees and grasses, perhaps not as necessary in the generally wide open plains of Tanzania and Kenya. But you can certainly still see a white patch there. Okay, well, hopefully we'll be visiting the Serengeti Explorer camera more often and seeing some fun things, but it sounds like we have some southern African waterbuck at safari. There we go. So down to Namibia, and you can see that very characteristic white circle. These two look rather shaggy. Also some youngsters, but look as if they just got out of the tumble dryer, to be honest. Whether that is just a response to the fact that they have been really struggling over the last few months for edible grass. See them feeding on the tiny, tiny little bits of growth coming through. So maybe their fur just doesn't look very good because they're lacking some of those essential minerals and nutrients. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely do look a little bit scraggly, these two, I'm sorry to say. Cory bustard or some form of large bird moving around in the background? Or is that an antelope? I see there's some springbok over there, but something to the left, as if it was moving more bird-like. But I may be mistaken.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
The bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold, a mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Forward to the summer rains and the influx of insects that it'll bring with, large part of their diet, as well as some small vertebrae, big enough to take even as much as sort of small birds and nestlings. But they do have an omnivorous diet, so they will also eat some fruits and some berries and bulbs, as well as very well known for eating acacia sap or acacia gum. Very, very nice to get a Cory bustard drinking. I'm sure you'll all agree. Let's head up now to the hide. Glassy said that Cory bustards look similar to turkeys. Yes, I suppose they do a little bit. But heavier than turkeys, I would think. Oh, I don't know. Retract that until I've checked it. I'd rather look at the elephants enjoying a drink up here at Hwangi National Park. Hello, youngsters. We will see if we get some dust bathing, whether they are particularly excitable as well, as we were discussing. Oh, wow! We've got a very skinny looking young male lion by the look of it. Wow, he is not doing very well. Looking at the rib cage there. This is the harsh reality of nature. I know we all want to see cats, but sometimes they're not always in the best of condition, whether this is TB or some other form of disease that has caused this sort of emaciation that we're seeing, or if it is a young male, potentially what's happened is he's been kicked out of his pride by the dominant male, or more likely even a new male coming into the area, and has had to learn to fend for himself. But at this young age, you can see he's not particularly old by the look of it, has perhaps not developed the hunting techniques, strategies, and particularly patience that is going to be required to find his own food. And looks like he is really, really struggling. Shame, boy. He's surviving on scavenging things, maybe chasing off a leopard or something off kills, but evidently not being overly successful at the moment. At least, however, he's getting some water. But it's a harsh reality. Unfortunately, a lot of young male lions don't make it, particularly if they are kicked out earlier. If it was with the father, I would expect him to get to around about 3 years before he has to leave. This one looks a lot less than 3 years, just looking at the main growth. So my assumption would be that new males have come in, taken over a pride, and he has been ousted before his time. And particularly if he is on his own, if he doesn't have any brothers supporting him, it can make for a very, very difficult first 2 or 3 years of living alone. And I'm sure you'll all join me in wishing him all the best, that he walks around the corner and finds a recently deceased buffalo that died of natural causes. That was a very, very skinny young lion. Hard to even put an age on him because of the condition he's in, but I wouldn't have said, probably not much more than about 18 months. Melissa, you were saying sad to see, and good luck, boy. I agree. Let's hope that he finds some food. It'll just take one big meal and he'll feel awful afterwards, like sometimes we do after a Christmas dinner. But it would do him the world of good, certainly. But it is possibly, it could be an underlying disease, something like TB, that has caused this as well. But I haven't seen as skinny a lion as this for a long time. You really see how the spine is sticking out, the vertebrae there. So you clearly see all of the rib cage. But hanging out close to the river is probably a good idea. Plenty of shade, plenty of shelter, and plenty of animals coming down to drink, if he can hone those instinctive skills, because he probably didn't have long enough to learn it all from mum, auntie, grandmum, and all of the other pride members, if he has indeed been ousted.
This is an unbelievable afternoon.
What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
And gear that can take a beating so you don't have to.
And that's it for this morning's drive.
She's just got her impala, everybody.
And we're going to be heading out and seeing what animals we can find.
Out here, every wild moment counts, and as a Wild Earth explorer, you will not miss out. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7, and you can even rewind if you have missed out on something. Enjoy the behind-the-scenes video clips as well as fireside chat, or get the early offers on our travel experiences. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
That do have different morphologies. Some have longer legs and are a bit slimmer. Others are much shorter, stockier and muscular. Think of the Etosha lionesses. They're never particularly tall, but they're barrel-chested, hugely muscular. But this is a standard Kruger lion, I would say. Just a very, very hungry one. You can hear the ring-necked dove doing its work harder, drink lager in the background, as well as a golden-tailed woodpecker squawking there. Wild at heart, you're saying hopefully a whole hippo carcass will be waiting for him next to the Oliphant River. I agree, let's hope. Wild at heart, let's hope. A nice big meal of hippo would go down a treat. And not impossible this time of year. Serious water stress. Hippos also struggling this time of year with the drying up of the pans and the lakes and the rivers. Tee-widdly, tee-widdly, tee-widdly of a pair of black-collared barbets duetting in the background as well. Are you just going to find yourself a shady spot, boyo, and have a rest? Dream about succulent steaks, I would think. Looks like a nice shady spot for a lie down. Yeah. Alright, let's leave this young boy in peace. Let's head back down to Mantis Founders Lodge. Our rhino having a nice scratch. Kelly, you're asking, will the reserve intervene in cases like this? In the Kruger National Park, Kelly, regrettably, they're not going to intervene for the case of a hungry lion, unfortunately. If it was a disease-based thing, then there will be a higher chance. But it's a question that comes up time and time again, and sometimes I know it's harsh, but we can't just help every animal that has a natural problem. It's too expensive for one thing. The only way to, well, if there was a medical problem that needs to be looked at, that animal would need to be darted. That in itself is dangerous, particularly if the animal is weakened. But unfortunately, we can't feed every animal that we see that is hungry. So, general rule of thumb, we say it all the time, it does come down to individual reserve management practices in the private reserves, but generally speaking, man-made problem, man-made answer, human problem, human answer. If we've directly caused that animal to suffer, then we have the responsibility to try and alleviate that suffering. If it was caught in a snare or stuck in a fence or hit by a car, those sorts of things, then we certainly do have an obligation to try and fix the problem we caused. But a young male lion struggling to find food, or an impala that breaks a leg, or something like that, then unfortunately we just can't intervene for all of them. It is the natural order of life. Maybe it was meant to be that that young lion was not supposed to grow up. Maybe he does have a genetic defect that, if he was given then the opportunity to take over a pride, would father, dare I say, inferior cubs that would harm the genetic lineage. So we have to trust that nature knows what it's doing, unfortunately. But it is difficult to watch, particularly working in these reserves, seeing the same animals time after time. If you see one start to struggling, it's very, very difficult to separate the emotion from it. We spend so much time with these animals. We love these animals. We love the environment, and it's not easy sometimes to watch them struggle. Rhino having a good scratch of the face, often around the base of the horns. You see how the base of the horn is often frayed because you have those little horn moths that are trying to lay eggs in those horns. They cause irritation. The rhino scratches them. You see that's more of a furry structure around the base of the horns. That's quite normal, just how the keratin reacts. It must be horrible not being able to scratch certain parts of your body. There's nothing worse than if you've got an itch and you can't scratch it. You'll take any means necessary, and I know this rock was placed there not all that long ago to give rhinos a scratching post like this, one that they're obviously using between them and the warthogs. I'm sure this stone over the years will be slowly smoothed over, the way we often see on rocks and tree stumps close to watering holes. Dylan, you're asking, could you get a rhino with an overgrown horn? I assume by overgrown you just mean particularly large. Well, we used to get rhinos with large horns, but regrettably, because of the poaching problems, it's a bit like with elephants. Large horned rhinos were killed first, and those genetics get removed from the gene pool and don't get passed on. I'm trying to remember what the longest rhino horn ever discovered, close to 2 meters, I think it was. So unfortunately, overgrown horns are a thing of the past. What you do sometimes see is rhino is 3 horns. I've seen it on more than one occasion with like a third horn erupting from the forehead. Just a slight genetic malfunction in there, causing growth in areas that it would otherwise not normally be seen. I saw some strange pictures recently that it actually can happen in antelopes, where you seem to sort of get horn beds that sprout these rather untidy keratinous masses. They look like horrible growths growing out of the side of their heads. Seen a few pictures of those lately that have been circulating. Maggie, I have felt a rhino and an elephant in the past. I've been lucky enough to do a few dartings and collarings and dehornings and things over my time here. You're asking if they feel similar? Yeah, I suppose they do. Very, very thick skin. Skin is always warmer than I think it's going to be, but very, very leathery. And a real honour to touch such a beast like this. I don't know how else to describe it, really. Just, yeah, very, very thick, rough, leathery, sparse hairs on them. But these pachyderms, similar in dermis structure. Obviously, far more wrinkles on an elephant, which may or may not assist with thermoregulation and water collecting in those cracks and staying wetter for longer and cooling the blood. But yeah, I consider myself very lucky to have been involved in a few things like that. I've done rhino and elephant at Mabulla and various ones within the Greater Kruger area. Dehorning was not something I enjoyed, and something, to be honest, I have no interest in being a part of again. I understand the requirements and the benefits and why it is necessary, but I didn't enjoy that experience at all. I found it all rather unsettling and unpleasant. Yeah, chainsawing an animal's face, even if it's for its own good, it just felt wrong. And it's a sad state of affairs that we have to do that because some people have skewed beliefs. Let's leave it at that. Warren Brown, you're asking if there's is one species of rhino, black or white, in more danger from poaching than the other? In terms of, there is no difference in terms of what the horn does, certainly to my knowledge, from an alleged medicinal benefit or medicinal belief. It's not different whether you have the horn of a black or a white rhino. It is the horn that is the important part. But which one is in more danger? You'd have to say black rhino, purely because their population density numbers are so much smaller, and therefore poaching one black rhino has a far greater effect on the overall population than a white rhino. I'm not sure of the latest figures at the moment, but we normally hover around 35,000 white rhino and maybe only 5 to 7 black rhino. So that's a big difference, and losing 10 black rhino is a far greater percentage of the population than 10 white rhino. Not that we want any of them to be poached at all. And a big shout out to all of the hard-working anti-poaching teams and all the organisations that put an awful lot of time, effort and money into safeguarding these magnificent creatures. Ah, hello, Warthog. Cue for the scratching stone. Okay, lovely to catch up with our rhino and a little cameo from the warthog there. Let's head up to Oldonyo. Looks like the zebras have started to take over the waterhole, and some oryx taking advantage as well of the lack of elephants now. Hannah, you're saying for the rhino and the warthog there was the meeting of the no necks. Absolutely. Jackie, you wonder if elephants ever try and imitate sounds? It's an interesting thought. I don't know. I suppose they're restricted to rumbles and trumpets and sort of growling noises, but would be quite funny to see. It's just got visions of an elephant up on stage doing animal impressions. Try to do the whooping of a zebra or a hyena, roaring like a lion. Ooh. Couple of flailing hooves, quite normal for zebras, forever arguing with one another. Grumpy things. Lovely sounds. Oryx is now getting lost in the dazzling stripes there, but I think those were fringe-eared oryx. You get bisa and fringe-eared oryx up in East Africa. The fringe-eared, as it suggested, has quite sort of furry tufts of hair at the tips of the ears, which I'm pretty sure I saw when they weren't being engulfed by this herd of zebras. The other elephants look as if they've slowly made their way to the tree line at the back. Just see some shadows moving around. I see someone's asked a question, have I ever seen an oryx with bent or curved horns? Yes, I have. Not often, but it does happen. Again, just a sort of either a genetic defect or possibly an injury that was done when the oryx was very, very young and bumped that horn bed slightly out of alignment, so it's growing in a skew direction. But a lot of the times, those deformed horns are due to a lack of certain minerals and things within the diet that manifests itself. But you can get them where one will sort of curve radically, perhaps more than 180 degrees, curve in an odd direction. But they are the minority again. And again, chances are they will have less mating opportunities because they're a less effective weapon. And those genetic defects will not be passed on to the next generation. Nature's way of ensuring the best genetics are passed on, survival of the fittest. And if somehow one of those bent horns suddenly becomes particularly effective in fighting, maybe one figures out a great technique and that knowledge is passed on, or that one wins fights and fathers many, many foals that all have that defect, and then they all start growing that way, and that's how natural selection and evolution works. Just as with all things in nature, it takes hundreds of thousands of years. Very difficult for us to comprehend things happening over such long time schemes.
For years, we've shared virtual wildlife. Now, let's experience it for real. I'm Lauren Arthur, and I'd love to show you my amazing home here in the Greater Kruger of South Africa. This 5-night journey is an exclusive connection to my piece of untamed Africa. I live here in these gorgeous landscapes surrounded by epic wildlife. The wild is calling, so come and join me.
The Wild with Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
Best sighting I've presented, I found myself with wild dogs. We chased the dogs around, chased them around. They ate an impala, we got the end of that. Then another impala went into Gowrie Dam down the road there, and the wild dogs went around. Eventually the impala came close to the bank. One wild dog went and grabbed it and then just pulled it out and just did what wild dogs do. It was an emotional experience, but it was very, very special.
Every week, the wilderness delivers.
And that's why we're here.
Drama, chaos, crimes, humour. All moments you'll never forget. We've counted them down, argued about them, and finally picked the very best. From rare sightings to classic bush showdowns, this is nature's weekly highlight reel. Sharp facts, bad jokes, and the wildest top 5 you'll see this side of the savannah. It's not just a show, it's a wild bush week.
We are here with a male leopard.
Are not really used in visual communication either, whereas the elephant at the back, if he suddenly gets stressed, irritated, you'll see that tail stick out almost sort of the same line as his spine, stand up away from the rest of the body, usually the sign of an agitated elephant. Something else you can look for out in the field. A lovely diverse time here up at Old Donia. Let's go back down to Tau on Midikwe. A nice group of waterbuck enjoying a paddle, an impala and a lone baboon coming down as well. I've noticed this a lot in Tau recently. These waterbuck have been feeding on the aquatic vegetation, completely understandably as well this time of year. It's quite normal to see them dip their entire faces into the water and pull out some of those sort of, I'm going to call it pondweed, but I'm sure it's far more technical than that. Lots of different species growing under the water. Interesting to see if the baboons come down as well. They'll also often pull up aquatic vegetation and feed on the roots. We see them do that with water lilies quite often. It is surprising to me that not more things eat this grass in the water, like the water buck is on the left. You don't often see elephants out there or zebras, wading through the water to get to it. I'm sure they could do. I've no idea what species of grass this is, but I can only assume that it doesn't taste very nice. Otherwise, other animals would be eating it. Maybe some chemical defense in there. There's one of our towel crocs in the foreground. And I'm assuming that baboon's found a little puddle of water. Hau ab. Nice to see so many birds coming down as well. There's a lot of nest building going on at the moment. We've been seeing swallows collecting mud. And a lot of these little seed-eating birds taking advantage of the water supply. They will be finding seeds now. Seeds, by definition, contain very, very little moisture. So that's why you see a lot of seed-eating birds coming down to the side of the water for a drink, just to try and help with the digestive processes. Canaries and waxbills and firefinches and things you'll often see drinking. Good way to potentially find water as well if you're lost in the bush. BBC are asking if the towel crocodiles are laying eggs yet. I don't know if anybody has seen it happen. I know we have witnessed crocodile mating a little while ago. I'd have to double check what the incubation period is for the eggs before they are actually hatched. But they will normally then dig little nests up on the bank somewhere. So I don't know if we've actually witnessed that happening yet. I haven't heard anything about it, but of course I can't monitor these cameras the entire time. But it would be lovely if we do have some baby crocs and we can watch some of that parental care which is actually handed out to baby crocodiles by the adults, which is very unusual, very rare within the reptile kingdom to show any form of parental care. They will keep them in little nurseries and protect them for the first couple of weeks of their lives before they start dispersing. Lovely congregation of different species of animals here at Tau. I just had a little check, and it does seem to be between mating and the laying of eggs could be between 1 and 2 months on average. So I would think we're around about that time, assuming mating was successful. It'd be interesting to know where they would choose to lay their eggs in a situation like this. But that's the beauty of having these cameras. Hopefully, we will be able to catch it. And then incubation period of around about 3 months, depending on external variables, of course. And then those eggs, the development of those eggs will be dictated by the temperature at which they are being incubated. So what we call temperature-dependent sex variation is a different sex depending on whether the eggs are cooler or warmer. So if those eggs are incubated at a cooler temperature, they're generally females, and at a higher temperature, they are mostly males. And then in between, you'll get a mixture of both. Weirdly, it's the other way around in tortoises and turtles and terrapins. So it's the opposite effect that the temperature has. So turtles, terrapins, below around about 31 degrees, it's mostly males, but in crocodiles, it's mostly females. And the opposite is true of warmer temperatures. Officially or officially, from what I'm just looking at now, below 31 degrees mostly females. Between 31 and 32 degrees is a mixture. 32 to 33 is mostly males, and above 34 degrees is females again. So very specific, just 1 or 2 degrees can make a difference. And I know if you are collecting, say, turtle eggs, for example, and trying to assist in their protection, it's very important to keep the temperatures exactly the same as they were from where you found them, otherwise you'll get a mess with the embryo inside. I actually learned a lot of that from reading Tony Park's latest book, Die by the Sword, which we discussed in our fireside chat. A little bit about turtle conservation in there. Alright, so let's head back over to Fander's Mountus Lodge. Lots of rhinos coming for a drink. Jill, back, so we've got quite a few lizardy questions coming through, which I'll field whilst we watch these rhinos. Jill, you're asking if only the baby crocodiles that Mum can carry will survive. I'm not sure, Jill. I think if they can find their own way to the water, then they will do. But yeah, Mum well known for carrying the crocs down to the water's edge. I guess it depends if the youngster is able to get out of the egg sufficiently and is able to waddle its way down to the water surface, but obviously a great help if Mum can do the heavy lifting for you. Dave, you're asking whether, I assume, crocodiles can whip their tails like monitors. Yes, hugely muscular tail. It's what propels them forward in the water, and they will use that as a method of defense as well. So definitely very, very strong tails in crocodiles. Millard, no, you're asking whether both sexes look after the youngsters. It's only the female, as is the case with the majority of animals. Male crocodiles are not involved in the rearing of the young, but remember with crocs, it's only for the first week or two that the mum will have any involvement. Once she gets them over that sort of critical first couple of weeks, she goes off on her own, and those youngsters are very much left to deal with life all themselves. in most reptile species, well, to have no parental care. So very unusual for a reptile to show any form of parental care, but maybe one of the reasons that crocodiles have been around for so long. Gordon, you're saying it's crazy to you that rhinos can run so fast on those stumpy little legs. I agree with you entirely, Gordon, but do not let those stumpy little legs influence your decision-making process. They are surprisingly agile rhinos. They can hit 40, 45 degrees, so they float when they run. It's weird, and I agree. It makes no sense. It must be incredibly powerful leg muscles to carry that great bulk. And they're capable of jumping. They can spin around 180 degrees in the air. Surprisingly athletic for a chunky looking animal.
This unfolds in front of you.
Wildlife spectacle on planet Earth. We'll see you there.
If you love watching Wild Earth, here's a little tip. You'll gain access to the channel ad-free. You can rewind and rewatch sightings and gain access to our live Tuesday safaris. There's also behind-the-scenes videos, fireside chats, and every safari live episode, whenever it suits you. It's just the best way to connect with nature.
Tracy, you want to know whether baby rhinos can walk immediately? Not immediately, but very, very quickly, considering their size. But after 18 months of gestation, there's been lots of skeletal and muscular development. Tendons and ligaments are well developed. And so they can be mobile pretty quickly. Normally, within an hour, a baby rhino is able to stand and can walk pretty much without falling over. They might have the occasional stumble, but we're all occasionally have those problems. But normally within maybe 3 hours or so, it's able to wander around under its own steam and running probably by 12 hours or so. And we know that's very normal for precocial animals that have a long gestation period, as I said, for the better muscular development, and vitally important, because if you're giving birth on the ground, you are more susceptible to predators and predation. So important that you can move around pretty quickly. All right, so I can't believe it, but we've only got 4 minutes left. These 2 hours have flown by, but that often happens when you haven't done this for a while. And we've had some lovely sightings. Let's finish off the day down at Tempe. The elephant at the back looks as if he's having a bit of a scratch of the midriff, does he, on a stump? And scratching his back leg. Oh, it's on a termite mound. His termite mounds are probably wondering what on earth is going on. Feels like the sky is falling. Ooh. My termite mound. In the game of King of the Castle. It is one of the ways that termite mounds do get damaged, some overzealous scratching from an elephant. Again, look at the tactile communication of the trunk. There's no aggression there. It's actually very gentle, sort of touching of one another, resting of the trunk in the mouth. Two boys who have grown up with each other. This won't be their first little push and a shove between them. And this one's decided to be the bigger man. This one said, fine, be the bigger elephant, I shall also walk away. But it seems the elephants have wandered off, so for the last minute or so, we will enjoy this family of baboons up at the hide in Wangi National Park. Youngsters also having a bit of a push and a shove, and the rest of them just very much look as if they're enjoying the view. Time for some grooming, some bonding, some drinking, maybe a few little shoots appearing close to the water. And a beautiful male bushbuck coming down for a drink. Okay, but we're down to the last 30 seconds. It's almost time to say goodbye. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I know I certainly have. And wonderful to see a lion at Oliphants, even if he did look a little bit needing of sustenance. So wish him all the best. But thanks for everybody's interactions. And we'll see you again soon.